2 years ago, my best friend Jamie saved me from the worst mistake of my life, and I owed him everything. It happened on a freezing January night, when the world felt like it was closing in. I was 17, furious at my parents over something stupid I can't even remember now, and I did what any dumb teenager does. I ran. Not just out the front door, but into the streets. No shoes, no plan, just pure adrenaline and bad decisions. I texted Jamie from the edge of the park, my thumbs shaking so hard I could barely type. Can you come get me? 5 minutes later, headlights cut through the darkness and there he was, unzipping his puffy blue jacket to throw it over my shoulders. I was sobbing, shivering, humiliated. Jamie didn't say a word, just steered me into his car, cranked the heat, and handed me one of those awful gas station hot chocolates. When he dropped me back at home, he went straight to my parents and told them I just needed someone to talk to. He took the blame for convincing me to sneak out, and somehow, they believed him. That night, I would have crashed and burned alone, but Jamie was my safety net. After that, our bond felt unbreakable. The thing about Jamie is, he didn't just have my back in the big moments, he was always there in the small ones, too. Every afternoon after school, we'd meet at the cracked basketball court behind Miller's Grocery, the one with the metal nets that rattled whenever a shot went in. He could always drain a three-pointer, even with the wind screaming in from the highway nearby. We'd walk to my place, shoes squeaking on the kitchen tiles, and raid the fridge for leftover lasagna or freezer pops. My mom loved him. She'd say, "You eat more here than at home, Jamie," and he'd just wink, tossing his backpack on the banister. My dad trusted him enough to lend him his old toolbox for shop class projects, like he was another son. We'd do homework at the dining table, feet tangled in the chair legs, whispering jokes while the scent of fresh laundry drifted in from the mudroom. Jamie knew the passcode to our garage and the trick to jiggling the basement window open if we ever forgot our keys. He'd even sleep over on the pull-out couch when my parents went out of town, making sure the house never felt empty. For years, it felt like Jamie was just part of the family. We shared everything. Notes folded into tiny squares during math, Spotify playlists, even dumb confessions about crushes or dreams. Once, when I panicked about a chemistry final, Jamie spent 3 hours with me at the kitchen table, explaining equations on the condensation-fogged window. When his parents started fighting more, he'd crash at our place, just to get some sleep. I always thought I knew all his secrets. I mean, I trusted him with mine. But lately, things had started feeling off. It started small, just these odd little things. Details I could ignore if I wanted to. A jar of coins missing from my dresser. My mom's favorite measuring spoons, gone from their hook. A video game controller I could have sworn I left in the living room, but then it turned up in the basement. I kept telling myself I was just forgetful, or that my younger brother had borrowed stuff and not put it back. There was this one night, maybe a month ago, when I got home late from a study group. The house was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and our old dog snoring in his crate. I tossed my bag in the hallway, and that's when I saw it. For half a second, poking out from behind the coat rack, there was a flash of navy blue nylon. Jamie's jacket. He hadn't texted me that day, and I knew he wasn't supposed to be there. My heart thudded in my chest as I reached for it, half expecting Jamie himself to lunge from the shadows. But when I checked, the house was empty. The jacket was gone. I convinced myself I must have imagined it, that maybe it was my own jacket or that Jamie had left it behind from last week. Still, I couldn't shake the chill that crept up my spine. The next morning, I noticed someone had moved my mom's jewelry box. The lid was open, and her favorite gold locket was lying on the floor. I didn't want to believe it, so I said nothing. Not to my parents, not even to Jamie. But the feeling lingered, heavy and sour, each time I walked into a room and found something out of place. Was I losing my mind? Or was something happening right under our noses? That's where I was, clinging to the idea that everything was fine, desperate to keep trusting the person who'd always been my lifeline. But if I'd looked a little closer, I might have seen the cracks forming in our perfect friendship. I might have realized that sometimes, the people we let closest can hide the darkest secrets. And I had no idea just how much worse it was going to get. My hands were shaking as I screwed the tiny camera into the picture frame in the hallway. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, that maybe my keys had just gone missing, or that the creak I'd heard on the stairs was the house settling. But the voice in my head kept repeating, "Jamie. It can't be Jamie." Still, my gut told me I needed proof, so I set the trap. I left for the library just after 5, wearing my backpack and slamming the door hard for effect. I waited around the corner in the drizzle, my heart pounding every time a car passed. Minutes crawled by. I checked my phone, watching the feed from the camera. Nothing happened at first, just the steady pulse of rain on the window, the hallway dark and quiet, the clock ticking on the wall. Then, my stomach dropped. The front door eased open with the slowest, careful push, and Jamie, my best friend since we were 7, slipped inside, glancing over his shoulder like someone in a bad spy movie. I watched, frozen, as he moved with way too much confidence, heading straight to the cabinet in the living room. He didn't even hesitate. He shoved aside a pile of old mail and started rifling through the drawers, fast, practiced, like he'd done it before. I couldn't wait anymore. I crashed through the front door, my shoes squeaking on the entry mat. "Jamie," I shouted, my voice cracked with something between anger and disbelief. He spun around, eyes wide, hands still gripping the drawer. For a second we just stared at each other, the only sound the rain outside. I realized I was breathing hard, my fists clenched. "What the hell are you doing in my house?" I snapped. Jamie's face went pale. He stammered, "It isn't what it looks like, man, I swear." I took a step closer, my voice shaking. "So what is it, then? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're robbing me." He dropped the drawer and it landed with a clatter. He ran a hand through his hair, glancing at the door. "You wouldn't understand." I swallowed, my throat tight. "Try me." He shook his head, stepping back from me. "I can't. You have to trust me, okay?" Trust him? The words stung. I could smell the faint scent of rain on his jacket, the sharp tang of nervous sweat in the room. I could see the way his hands trembled, the way his eyes wouldn't meet mine. For a second, all I wanted was for him to blurt out some explanation, to tell me this was some stupid joke or dare. But Jamie just stood there, staring at the floor, refusing to explain. I felt the anger and confusion swirl together inside me, making my skin crawl. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, but all I could do was whisper, "Get out." He hesitated, then slipped past me, out into the wet night, the door closing softly behind him. I stood frozen in the dark, the silence of the house pressing down on me. My best friend, the guy who'd pulled me out of more disasters than I could count, had just broken into my home, and he wouldn't even tell me why. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Jamie's pale, guilty face. My mind raced through every memory, every hint I'd missed. I thought about the late-night texts he'd started ignoring, the way he'd seemed distracted lately, always glancing at his phone or looking over his shoulder when we hung out. By morning, the confusion had calcified into something harder, a need to know the truth. So I started digging. I called Jamie's house, hoping his mom would pick up, but got his little sister instead. "Hey, is Jamie home?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She hesitated. He's not here. He said he was staying after school for a project." That was weird. Jamie hated school projects, and he'd never been shy about complaining. Besides, it was a Saturday. I asked, "Is everything okay?" She lowered her voice. "He's been weird lately. Mom's super mad. He got detention twice this week. He's grounded, but he keeps sneaking out." The unease deepened. I thanked her and hung up, my fingers cold around my phone. Jamie, getting detention? Lying to his family? It didn't fit. I scrolled through our messages, looking for clues. The weeks before, there were gaps, full days he didn't answer. Messages from me, "You up?" and "Dude, movie night?" went ignored or got a single word answer hours later. I walked to school, hoping maybe someone had seen him. In the bright, echoing hallways, I asked around. His lab partner frowned when I mentioned Jamie's name. He stopped coming to class. Said he was sick, but then I saw him downtown, hanging by the bus stop. He looked rough. I pressed for more, but no one had answers. It was like Jamie had turned into a ghost, a kid-shaped shadow slipping out of sight. That evening, back at home, I replayed everything, my memories stacking up like puzzle pieces that didn't fit. It didn't make sense. Jamie wasn't a thief. He hated secrets. But as I paced the floor in my socks, my foot caught the edge of the old rug in the study. I stumbled, and the rug slid, revealing a loose floorboard. My breath caught. I knelt and pried it up, my fingers finding the edge worn smooth by years of use. Inside was a small, faded envelope, sealed with wax. I stared at it, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I'd never seen it before. On the front, in my late uncle's cramped handwriting, was my family's last name. The air smelled musty, the dust tickling my nose. I hesitated, my hand hovering above the envelope. My uncle had died when I was 10, and my family only ever mentioned him in whispers. I didn't open it, not yet. Instead, I called my mom into the room. She looked at the envelope, her face going white. "Where did you find that?" she whispered. I pointed at the floorboard. "Why didn't you ever tell me about this?" She hugged herself, her knuckles white. "We thought it was lost. After your uncle died, things got complicated. He was always hiding things, money, notes, even keys. He was paranoid." It felt like the whole room shrank, the air thick with secrets. I held up the envelope. "Did Jamie know about this?" My mom shook her head, but the look in her eyes told me she suspected something. I set the envelope on the table, the wax seal unbroken, the mystery humming between us. That night, I lay awake listening to the hum of the fridge in the kitchen, the wind scraping tree branches against the siding outside. Jamie hadn't come back. He hadn't texted. I wondered if he was watching my house, waiting for me to leave again. I decided I needed answers, even if Jamie wouldn't give them to me. So I started digging into my own family. I pulled out old photo albums, letters, dusty boxes my mom kept in the basement. There were pictures of my uncle, younger, laughing with people I didn't recognize. Receipts from strange places, wads of cash stuffed inside books. One letter caught my eye. It was addressed to someone with Jamie's last name. My mind reeled. Why would my uncle be writing to Jamie's family? I snapped a photo of the letter and sent it to Jamie with a single text. "What are you not telling me?" He didn't answer. I tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. I was almost ready to give up when I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. The voice on the other end was low, rough, and urgent. "Are you alone?" the voice asked. I hesitated. "Who is this?" There was a pause. "You don't know me, but I know your family. And I know Jamie. He's in trouble. If you want to help him, you need to listen." The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I felt like I was in a thriller, only this was my actual life. I asked, "What do you want?" "Meet me behind the old church at midnight. Don't bring anyone. And whatever you do, don't open that envelope." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, chills running down my arms. My room felt suddenly colder, like the secrets in the house had crept out of the walls. I waited until everyone was asleep, then slipped out, hoodie pulled over my head, heart hammering with every step. The air outside was sharp, the smell of wet earth and dying leaves thick in my nose. When I got to the church, I saw Jamie standing there, arms crossed, shivering in the light of the street lamp. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, eyes red, cheeks hollow. He saw me and shook his head. "You shouldn't have come," I demanded. "What's going on, Jamie?" "Who called me?" He glanced at the shadows. "Someone who wants to ruin both our families. Look, I never meant for you to get dragged into this." "But," he broke off, rubbing his face. "It started months ago. I got this message from some guy who said he was related to us. He knew things about my dad, about your uncle. He threatened to hurt my little sister if I didn't do what he wanted. He said there was something hidden in your house, something he needed." My mouth went dry. "The envelope." I asked, "Who is this guy?" Jamie looked terrified. "He says he's our cousin. But nobody in my family will talk about him. He's been blackmailing me. He has pictures, stuff that could ruin my dad." I didn't know what to do. He kicked at a patch of gravel, the crunch echoing in the empty lot. "That's why I was sneaking around. I thought if I found whatever he wanted, maybe he'd leave us alone." A car drove past, headlights sweeping over us, and we both flinched. I could taste the fear in the air, thick and metallic. I asked, "Why didn't you just tell me?" Jamie's voice broke. "I wanted to. I almost did, 100 times. But every time I tried, he'd send me another threat. I was scared." My anger fizzled, replaced by something heavier, a mix of dread and protectiveness. Jamie looked so small, hugging himself against the cold. I took a shaky breath. "We need to go to the police." He shook his head. "If we do, he'll know. He has eyes everywhere. He said if we go to anyone, he'll hurt our families." I pulled out my phone, hands numb. "Jamie, we can't do this alone." He grabbed my arm. "Please, just trust me. Let's figure this out, together. Don't open that envelope yet. If we do, we might make things worse." I stared at my best friend, the kid who'd stood by me through every disaster, and realized just how much danger we were both in. The secrets weren't just his. They were mine, too, woven through both our families like barbed wire. That night, alone in my room, I turned the envelope over in my hands. The wax seal felt rough under my thumb. My phone buzzed with a message from Jamie. "Don't do anything until I call. Promise me." I texted back. "I promise. But you have to tell me everything. No more secrets." His reply came seconds later. "Okay. Tomorrow. You'll know everything." But as I put my phone down, I realized the truth. Whether we were ready or not, the past was coming for us, and this time, it wasn't going to let us go so easily. I stared at Jamie, his desperate confession echoing in my ears. There was no denying it now. My best friend, the guy I'd trusted with everything since middle school, had been sneaking into my house, all because someone was blackmailing him. I felt my heart pounding, torn between anger and fear, but underneath it all, there was this ache that came from understanding how scared he was. "You can't keep doing this," I said, voice barely a whisper. My hands shook as I squeezed them into fists. "If my parents catch you, it's over. For both of us." Jamie's eyes were glossy, red-rimmed. I know, but if they get that envelope, it's over for my mom. You know what she's done, they'll ruin her, maybe worse. I was trying to protect you, too. His words hung between us, heavy and raw. The envelope, that stupid, incriminating envelope my dad had hidden in our safe, the one with proof about Mrs. Tran's old business deals, and apparently, a secret my parents never told me about. My mind spun. Did I risk everything to protect my family, or help Jamie outsmart the person blackmailing him, even if it meant lying to everyone I loved? I watched sunlight slant through the cracked garage window, catching dust in gold beams. I remembered all the times Jamie had my back, even when I made it hard. But this was different. There was no easy out. Who's blackmailing you? I asked. Jamie tugged at the sleeve of his hoodie, voice barely audible. I can't say. If I do, they'll go after my sister next. They said they'd hurt her if I told. I pressed my palms to my eyes, struggling to breathe. Okay, I'll help you, I said, forcing the words out. But we have to do this my way. No more sneaking around. We'll make the envelope disappear, so nobody can use it against anyone. But then you're coming clean to your mom. And I'm telling my parents, too. He looked at me like I'd just thrown him a life preserver in a storm. You'd do that? He asked, voice trembling. I don't want to, but I can't lose you, Jamie. I just want this to stop, I said, feeling tears sting the corners of my eyes. The next 24 hours were a blur. We waited until my parents were out, then crept into the den. My fingers shook as I opened the safe, its metal cold and solid beneath my hand. We pulled out the envelope, the one that could burn both our families to the ground, and I hesitated for a long, silent second. Then, together, we shredded every page and watched the pieces swirl into the fireplace, curling and blackening to ash. For a moment, I thought we'd done it. But the fallout was impossible to avoid. The next day, my dad stormed into my room, waving his hands. Did you touch anything in the safe? He demanded. I swallowed, feeling my cheeks flush hot. I did. I'm sorry, Dad, I had to. My parents were furious. Jamie's mom found out, too, and the Tran family stopped talking to mine for a while. My house felt hollow with the silence, no more sleepovers, no more laughter from the next room. But Jamie and I survived, somehow. We kept our promise. He told his mom the truth, and I came clean to mine. It wasn't easy. Trust, once burned, leaves scars. I guess I finally understood that. Months later, Jamie and I sat on the old swings behind the elementary school, the air sharp with the scent of cut grass. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. Thanks for not giving up on me, Jamie said quietly, pushing his shoe through the dirt. I looked up at the clouds, feeling the weight of everything we'd lost and everything we'd somehow managed to keep. We're different now, I said. But I think that's okay. We never went back to how things were. But we found a new kind of friendship, one built on hard truths instead of easy secrets. And even though my family would never trust him the same way, I knew we'd made the right choice. Some bonds survive the fire, they just come out changed.